what we will show you today is the fruit of several years of work, and this is a site presenting the project Verena and me are having together for the last few years. It's an ongoing project, you'll hear about it. We will start with Dr. Verena Buzer of Berlin, who researches post-war, among other things, post-war work with children. She will talk about the post-war period. We will then talk about the key word of our project, which is relevance. The relevance of this work to today's world and today's children. And we will show you how we go along with it, and maybe we'll have time also for a small discussion in the end. But Verena, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Boaz, and I have the honor now to welcome you here because you are more or less the first to whom we present this website. Today it's already online, but now it's really beautiful. Boaz invested so much work in the last weeks, so thank you for this. And so I start with the post-war situation and let you a little bit know how we came to this and how I came to this project, or how we developed this idea. So with a view on the Allied troops liberating Europe, we focus at the moment on Europe. For example, in liberated Germany, there were at least 10 million people uprooted, and at least, you know, with the view on the post-war, it's always hard to speak about numbers because the people would never stay in one village or town. It was a chaos in the post-war. So, and we speak about at least about 200,000 children, a great number of them being unaccompanied in post-war Germany. So, and the Allies, the UNRWA, the Joint, the Jewish Relief Unit, and international working transnational NGOs, they started to work with these children. And when I came to this topic, I started with the issue of searching displaced children in the post-war. I was really surprised that there was no master plan. I mean, I always like to compare it to today with Germany after 2015, but there was no master plan to what to do with these children, how to rehabilitate them. So what the Allies and international working Jewish and non-Jewish organizations started was a historical process. Yes, they started and they invested so much time in this process, which didn't necessarily mean that it was a success story. There were failures, but of course you can also learn from trial and error. And for example, in my research, it was interesting because they already started to make plans to search for children, Jewish and non-Jewish children, and search, I will let you know in some minutes, was a crucial or integral part of rehabilitating child survivors. And by the way, Ruth Klüger was the perfect ending because she was also that what we today naturally call a child survivor. So, and yes, so they began, the Allies, Jewish organizations, non-Jewish organizations, they began to search for children, or they made plans already ready in 1943. They began to search for them only in 1946, more or less in January. But only 4 years after the war's end, they had a master plan how to search for these children, and you can, oh, this is my smartphone, sorry. So, but you can imagine that depending on where you are in Europe or in the East, 4 to 5 years after the war's end, how to search for children who are now not children anymore and who disappeared, who lived now in other families, in other ethnic or culture. Sorry. No, it doesn't matter. So you can put it here. So this only 4 or 5 years they had this master plan, and yeah. Now, to let you know, who were the children of whom we speak today, of displaced children or child survivors, Jewish child survivors. So there was this one group, for example, these were children who were kidnapped from mostly Poland, but also Eastern European countries, but also from Slovakia or the Netherlands or Belgium, and who were kidnapped from their countries of origin, brought into Germany with brutal methods. They were Germanized and they were raised as ethnic Germans. This was one of the groups. Then we have, this was the first group. Then we have these children who were born as children of forced laborers, of female forced laborers. Some of them were also kidnapped from their mothers and raised as ethnic Germans, or tried to raise as ethnic Germans. And and we have these children as forced laborers. So these children who were brought from Poland, the Ukraine, Russia, and other countries, and who had to conduct forced labor for the German war industry. And we have all those children. The United Nations subsumed them as defined them as non-Aryan children, and they subsumed under this non-Aryan children the Jewish children. And of course, all of you know that the Jewish children were those, at least 1.1 million Jewish children were murdered during the Shoah. But after the war's end, there were only little numbers in liberated Germany of Jewish children, and most of them were around 14 to 16 years and were more or less teenagers, because as you know, Jewish children had almost no chance to survive camps, ghettos, and so on. This situation changed later from 46 onwards because of these children who survived in the Soviet Union. And we have a fifth group. These were children who were born in the displaced persons camp. And this is a new area of research. Just last year they had a big conference in a former displaced persons camp in St. Ottilien. And they brought not all of course, but a group of children who were born, who today live in Israel, and brought them to this former camp. It's a place in southern Germany. It's St. Ottilien. They had this reunion. So, and why did I mention that child search, for example, from my own expertise, is part of rehabilitating children, but also, of course, their relatives and parents. This is a quite well-known case of Fiorella Anticoli. She was deported in 1943 with her grandmother to Auschwitz. But this letter to the search authorities of the United Nations was only sent 6 years after the war's end to the United Nations, which meant there was still the hope that this child would return. She was only 2 years old. Of course, she did not survive, but the father had still this hope that this child would maybe found somewhere in Israel, in Europe, or hope. He couldn't give up the hope to find her. And for the children and the adults, it was most important to know about the whereabouts of their relatives and beloved ones. Which meant, if you know about the fate, there are studies today in Germany about children from the Middle East who enter Germany, but if you know where the children are, you can go further, and even if you know that this child did not survive the war, you know it, you can mourn about this, but you can go further. And this is one of these most touching letters in more than, for example, 66,000 individual case files which are housed today in the archives of the International Tracing Service. and with whom I work, of course not with all of them, but you can enter them also in Yad Vashem or in USHMN in Washington. So another thing what the UN did, they conducted interviews with the children, what happened to them, what are their future plans, and so on. This is only one interview with one boy in one United Nations Children's Center. And this was another part, how to build shelters for those children who were unaccompanied. And I have some pictures here from these shelters. They were called United Nations Children's Center, and there were at least 14 for Jewish children. I will not read it out for you, but how did we come? I give over in 1 minute to Boaz. We are convinced that there are timeless challenges of rehabilitating war-affected children. So we heard it in the case of Ruth Klüger, this early independence. What did she say? I'm only 13, but I survived or experienced things that are, this quote, more like a 50-year-old woman, yes? So, and I hand it over to Boaz now. This is your part now, yes.
What we understood was when we did our research separately, we met in Yad Vashem once many years ago, and then we met again and again, and we understood that what we are doing has relevance for today. That what we have today in the world, especially we started 3 years ago with the Syrian war and with children moving all around, and we are talking today about millions of war-affected children in the world today. And it was very obvious for us that something has to be done, because we were looking also at a search, which is early attempts at finding out who the children are, what the fate of the children, but also what are the macro questions you have to ask. What is the child's best interest is a major issue then and today. For a refugee child or a child who lost his parents in a war, or etc. I researched the micro level. My latest paper is about the running of children's homes by survivor women taking care of survivor children. And I went to how the bread was put on the table, and also psychological questions, educational questions. The issue of listening to children, which was very strong. We are actually we are giving voice both to the early caretakers and also to the children of that time. What I want to show is the site. So we tried to convince several of our friends and several funders that you can really do something good in the world with this. But our friends didn't believe that in what we suggested. They left us on the way, very good friends until now. They said, look, 70 years passed from the Second World War. So much work has been done, so much research has been done. There was never a moment in the world with no refugee children, with no war children, so what have you got to add? But we thought, and this was articulated very strongly by the Vice Director of the International Criminal Court when I spoke there, we started making an impact with my lecture in the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He said, you have to widen the mind, you have to give people a wider view of what they are doing. And I'll give an example later on. So we started doing several things, and this site has two, we had to build it. One of the founders insisted, and we thank him for it very much. We want to do two things. First, we want to showcase what we do in order to do more. And the other thing is to build a repository for materials, so that people will put their research here, and people will find that research here. So I'll show you very fast what we are doing. Our basic belief is that historians can contribute with their expertise in rehabilitating war-affected children today. This is our basic claim. Each one of these issues, family reunification, education issues, fostering adoptions, unaccompanied children, sexual violence, each one of these, we tell how it was, what happened in a few words about the post-war world. And we had excellent cooperation with Ghetto Fighters House Archive, whose director Anat Brightman is here, and she let us use their photos, which make this site really strong. I mean, the photos are a very strong language. So if we look at what we did, we started a series of events. We managed from 2017 to do 3 international workshops, bringing together historians and practitioners for the sake of today's children. So we did 3 international workshops. We put in each workshop a group of people doing what we do as historians, researching things that happened in the after the war, and people who work in the field today. And we brought people who run, when we had money for this, to bring people who run hostels in Greece. We brought NGOs who work in Africa. So we had also in Afghanistan, a lot of work that work in Afghanistan. And then we started working with the people in the field, and this I will talk about our last workshop this January in Potsdam, which was focusing on family reunification. What we did it with the Potsdam University of Applied Sciences and with the Israeli embassy in Germany. What was interesting is that it turned out that people do things very differently when they come from the social sciences or when they come from history. And one of the major issues was, do you talk with the child about what happened before he came to Germany? So they don't. They have all the NGOs who were there. We're talking about like a Stunde Null, 0 hour, kid go to Germany, from now we give you an open ear, we'll help you, we'll talk to you. And we asked them, don't you talk about experiences? What is the child, what baggage the child brings with him? Nothing. By decision, I mean, you're a psychologist, you can't do that, you need preparation, you need professional people. A lot of reasons why not to do it. And we told them, look, when you look at the post-war world, everyone who worked with children, the people who did good work, understood you have to give the children a voice. You have to hear them, you have to record their stories. This was done very strongly in the Jewish case, where we can see already in 1947 is an anthology of children's experiences here, because in the same year you have 3 anthologies published in 3 languages of Jewish survivor children. This is 1947. There's one in Polish, this one. There's one in Yiddish in Argentina, which was the Yiddish powerhouse after the war. And there's one in Tel Aviv. I mean, people are investing in publishing books. This is post-war world. There's no money to go around, no funding. People are publishing books of children's stories, children's testimonies. So they understand this is critical. Of course, not everyone understands this. There's an argument. It's not simple. But the side who thinks children should be heard, and this is a major issue in rehabilitation, that side is very strong. I will not say that they are winning the discussion, but they are very strong, and we historians are doing Joanna said the way here, Joanna Michlitz is leading this research based on what the children are telling us, and we are also doing this, and Joanna is also a contributor to our site. The understanding that you have to hear the children is something that people today don't talk about. So we are now, once we have this site, we consider ourselves activist academics, and it turns out that we planned a panel on this here, but there was no time to put it in. A panel because we have Miriam, who's an activist academic, and we have Joanna, we have ourselves. People are academics, but are activists in problems of today. And so it was a plan which we didn't make. But we are now talking with the University of Huddersfield, wherever that is, somewhere between Manchester and Leeds. And they want to do a workshop in the north of England because they have a big community of refugees. So this site is now our opening point to go on. And of course we have the articles, which is very nice. Our site builders from Maalot did very nice work. Each paper has a card. We're supposed to do a short video on each paper, which is...
It will come.
It will come. No, it's a 2-minute video on each paper, which will go up to YouTube, and then people will find the papers through YouTube, and of course you have the paper itself, the academic. We don't believe in not bringing papers on the web. We put all our work on the web in order for people to read it, which is what I think we wrote for. So we use academia, we use this, we share everything we can because we want people to read our work. This was why we worked so hard. So I'll stop here. This is our official launch. We are looking for partners, both people who write on these issues of children, families, to put their material here if they want to. We give full respect to contributors. You can see here we have we have initiators, it's Verena and me. Contributors, we have Joanna. We have Rebecca Clifford, who is writing a book on the trajectory of surviving children from children's homes in Britain. And we have more promises. We just started, but I think it will have a life of its own. But we are looking for partners, we are looking for ideas, we are looking for funding, not big funding. We can run a workshop for small sums and do really, this thing is very small in money-wise, the whole project. We were aided especially by 2 German foundations, the EVZ, which is Memory, Responsibility, and Future. That's a government foundation, and a small foundation called
Martha Mucho Stiftung for Children's Research on Children.
And we cooperate with all sorts of... so we also looked for partners. We put all the... wait a minute, another one back. Let's do the easy way. If you go to the bottom, we see we have a lot of partners. Not everyone put money here, but everyone put a hand here. UCL, for example, University College London, in the Institute of Advanced Studies, where John is a senior fellow, I am an associate fellow, they gave us full backing. They did all the money, all the budgeting, all the expenses. We brought the money, but they did all the work, and they had us for 3 days. We had one project in the Pestalozzi Frobel House. We had another project we work with the Children's History Society of the UK, and we're now trying to establish, by the way, for Israelis, a Children's History Society for Israel, because we don't have one. So it's about time. So that's another project that started yesterday. And anyway, so I'm showing this not to show off a bit, to show up, but what we are really interested in is to make an impact. And this site is for us a tool. And we want this to get to your friends, to people you know, to people working in the field. It's in English for now. We plan the German and Hebrew versions, but we want this to get to people in the field, to your colleagues who are working on war children, to people who are interested in doing workshops on war children. So we want really to bring together the academic, the historians and the people from the field. We have expertise in this. We have a proven track record. And all we want is to do more things like that. Thank you very much.
In some ways, going back, when it comes to Jewish children and the historiography, because I recently wrote 2 articles, because in some ways, we are, as historians, we are also looking back what has been done and what hasn't been done. So, for example, today we still don't know about the Soviet Jewish children. We even don't know the numbers.
Yes.
So that's another aspect which actually can also throw light. What is being said, what is investigated, and what is not being investigated.
Yes.
Then we have the whole area, which I think is important to include here, Boaz, and we can think about it: children and medicine, the conceptualization of children and child survivors. Jewish children, because we have lots of material in English, Polish, different languages, and then to compare that to the conceptualization of child refugees to that by medical doctors, psychologists, etc., etc. So it's in some ways the whole field,
Yes.
that it can be open for comparative analysis.
We will certainly do this. What doesn't open, how we find the bugs. It doesn't open, but there is a PDF here. I wrote a paper which our colleagues in the college did not understand. Is this a research proposal? I said, no, this is a research plan, an academic paper that sets the issues of research needed for post-war children. So exactly what you talked about, and other issues. We tried like to show the way to the future, how to go on in researching post-war children. There's a lot of work done by people, and I mentioned Joanna's work and our own work, and there are good people doing, not many, you can count them on two hands, or twice two hands, but not more. Yes.
And it's also important that what we said at the end, that we want to translate this historical knowledge, because we learn from the people in the field that, of course, the people in the field do not need 30 pages of...
okay, I will say one word on this before I give Angie a chance to ask.
Yes.
We learned in the first workshop the historian talks slow and people in the field talk fast.
Yes.
So a major challenge here is literally translating this knowledge into 2-minute videos, Twitter posts. There's a whole work to do here. We talked about taking even experts for this. If we have funding, if not funding, maybe volunteer students. We have to translate the whole thing into modern languages. English, academic English is not a modern language.
And 3 pages.
Tops. If someone wants to read, really wants to read, 3-page article. If not, a short Facebook post. Twitters, 170 signs. 2 minutes of video. We have to change the whole concept, and this is something we doesn't show on the side. But maybe if we will do the videos for the papers, it will be a first stage. But actually, we will take a big paper, cut it down for a series on a children's home, how to run a children's home for war children, and cut it down into 2-minute bits and start talking 2 minutes every time on another subject. We have a lot of work here, and if you have student translators who like to do new media, maybe we can think with them too, because our student translators to new media here speak Hebrew, and we have to get to the English-speaking world outside, or your Greek-speaking world, or whatever. Yeah. Okay, Angie.
Quick, I wanted to say that I was very surprised that there was no social research, because NGOs are not social sciences; they're NGOs. So because there's a lot of research about children's narratives in psychology, a lot. I myself worked on children's narrative post-trauma displaced camps in Colombia. A lot of work being done in the Spanish-speaking world, tons, endless, because there is an ongoing conflict of children that are being displaced, children that have witnessed their family members being murdered. I myself worked with it. Very complicated. You do need to be a psychologist to work with this. It is not easy to get a story of trauma out of a child. It requires hours of knowing how to handle it. Children's memory does not work the way an adult's memory works, and it's very complicated, and it's a craft. But I'm just saying that there is, at least in the Spanish-speaking world, and I see connections for you guys. Well, that could be wonderful. Again, I'm going to send you. I'm not working in that anymore because it was too much for me. But I'm going to make this connection because I think they could contribute lots of things.
We believe in cooperation. Today's academy, you can't do things alone. If you want to do something make an impact, certainly you can't work alone. And we don't know everything. I must tell you. I said to someone, I know a lot on several issues, but there's so much on post-war children. I know. I read other people's work. I did research myself, but we are just scratching the surface. So many people are reading, so many documents. Bad Aroslan, the ITS, put now 13 million documents on the web. Someone has to read this. When exactly? I mean, you have to start where, I mean, we were going to the UN archive to see such documents. Now that we have them on our table, but 13 million, I mean, come on, this is a bit, it's a challenge.
But we have the contact on the website if any of you would
Yeah.
like to send something or a cooperation.
Yeah,
whatever,
or
we
find us other friends or want to do a project with their students and translating it to new media. We are real in English or European language. We're looking where the refugees are. I will do a translation to Arabic for. I would have gone to Jordan to work with in the refugee camps, but I don't feel that safe about it. But I believe that we have to translate it into languages of countries where you have refugees, which is for us now, Germany is very prominent, English-speaking world, many people speak English, maybe French. So anyone who has any idea or wants to take his students or friends into this, we are welcome, because this is really important, and the children are now children. In 3-4 years, there'll be maybe new wars, hopefully not, but we have enough. The big wave that now these children need us, and their caretakers need us, this is now, 3-4 years from now, and then they're all young adults, and we'll start a new story. Okay, thank you very much.